Trump didn't take it down. He's not up there on a step stool pulling pictures off the walls or prying the letters off the wall. If he did, I'd love to see that. Hey everybody, Yankee here. I wasn't even going to do a video tonight. I was going to take a day off. But a viewer sent me an email that has me outraged, and it's something I want to talk about. This viewer sent me a message saying that Trump has torn down a memorial to gun violence victims at the ATF. And that got my blood a-boiling. Not because the Trump administration took it down, but because it existed. I'd never even heard of this before, but I ended up researching it, watching some videos on it, and yep, there it is. The Biden administration decided that they were going to put the picture of 100, 120 people, whatever, on the wall, nice floating frames, put a big banner thing above it, three-dimensional, that says victims of gun violence, and put them up there so that they can exploit the tragedies for political hay. And not only exploit tragedies and people that were the victims of violence, but also do it on a government building's walls, on a publicly funded place. And not only that, a publicly funded government agency that's supposed to be neutral, that's just there to enforce laws, not to get involved in politics. And yet, there it was, a great big political FU to all the people that were on this wall as far as I'm concerned. Or at least an FU to all the people that aren't, because I'm sure they were really inclusive of who's on there. I bet you the people that the ATF themselves have shot and killed are probably on that wall, right? Not just high-profile people that, they can make political points off of. I'm sure every person in an inner city somewhere that lost their life to gun violence, is probably on that wall, right? Not just people they picked and chose. I'm sure the people that police have killed are on that wall, right? Especially the ones they mistakenly killed or wrongly killed. I'm sure Breonna Taylor and Philando Castile, I'm sure all those people are on that wall, right? No, they're not. They give a big FU to them. These were people they could make political hay out of and get political sympathy. And it was also a way for them to seem like they were doing something for the victims, without actually doing anything. So I'm glad it was torn down. And it makes me sick that, this is what they care about, people that die by gunfire. It seems like that's the only time that any Democrat cares about someone dying is if it's at the barrel of a gun. It's the only time they care. Because, listen, that's the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. A lot of people say, well, the reason they put up the victims of gun violence is because they cover firearms. Well, they also cover alcohol and tobacco, too. And if they put up one to the people who died in the last several years to alcohol or tobacco, well, they wouldn't have enough wall space in every building they had. Every office would have to be plastered with pictures. But they don't care about those people because there's not a political agenda around, lung cancer or cirrhosis of the liver. There's no political points to be made there. You don't win any votes with those. So that they don't care about. They only care about people who died from gun violence. And we're going to put up a memorial. And I'm glad that Trump took it down. Like I'm saying, not Trump didn't take it down. He's not up there on a step stool pulling pictures off the walls or prying the letters off the wall. If he did, I'd love to see that. But, his administration took it down. And when asked about, they're like, oh, this isn't political. We're just trying to find a different way to honor these people. Well, one, why is a government agency honoring them at all? That's not what taxpayer money's for. I'm sure that wasn't cheap to put up. So why are they doing that at all? And two, like I said, why aren't they honoring all the other people who die from alcohol and tobacco every year? Because there's no political points in it. So I was outraged that this existed, and I'm glad it's gone. Like I said, I'd love to see Trump tearing it down by hand, but I'm sure it was a janitor probably took it down. But of course, the media wants to make it sound like Trump did it himself because he's evil and he's mean, and he just goes around looking for ways to dishonor the dead, whatever. This was something that never should have existed. This was a political move by Biden, or whoever did Biden's bidding for him towards the end. Because, Biden didn't come up with this idea. He didn't say, oh, let's build a wall that has pictures of people we choose by hand who we can get sympathy for and make it, get some political clout out of it. and put it on the wall. He didn't come up with that. I'm sure he barely came up with, wipies, I need wipies, presidential poopies. That was probably more what he was saying. But like I said, this thing should never have existed, and I am outraged that it existed. The fact that they center on, gun deaths, people who died from gun violence. Was it violence when the police, like I say, wrongly kill someone? Is it violence when the ATF enforces laws that were never passed and kill someone? How about when they imprison them, ruin their lives, their children's lives? Should we have a memorial to those people? Especially after the Supreme Court goes, those laws you're saying are laws aren't laws. They're just things you came up with, and that's illegal. Do we have a memorial for those people? Not just the ones who died, but the ones whose lives have been ruined by the ATF. I don't think they'll put one up. Like I said, they'd need a lot more wall space, just like they would if they were going to put up people who died from alcohol and tobacco. But like I was saying, that was ridiculous to even put that up there. Like 100 people, 100-something people that were hand-chosen to be on that wall. Such an honor, one of the fathers was talking about, such an honor to be part of this political, showmanship, this political theater, because it wasn't honoring your daughter in any way. It was using her tragedy to earn political points. And it was disgusting, and I'm glad it's gone. So the person who sent me the email, if you were actually upset that they took this down, because, you were like, we as gun people are responsible, and we don't want to see people die from gun violence. And you're right, we don't. But this was no real tribute to anybody who was killed by a gun in the hands of a bad guy. This was just a political move. And it didn't honor the people who probably more deserved to be honored. It honored the people who they thought they could get some political clout out of. Maybe even get some donations. One of the women on there, her dad was, someone who ran for office, and he was on the news talking about it. So they could get some lip service. How great the Biden administration is on gun violence. That's what it was all about. So yes, I am outraged that it existed. And I'm glad that it's gone. And I wish Trump had torn it down himself. Because like I said, I'd like to see that. If only to watch an octogenarian almost climb a stepladder and use a crowbar. That would have been, I think, hours of entertainment. But like I said, that's not what happened. A political move got undone, one that should have never been done on a government agency's walls for reasons that were political purely and didn't really honor any of the real people out there that should have been honored, like the Breonna Taylors, like the Philando Castiles. They sweep that under the rug because, we can't put the people up there that we killed. Of course, that's just stupid. So, like I said, it was disgusting that it existed. And it's a good thing that it's gone.